Welcome to Capitalists versus Consumers, where we break down how money really works and show you how to start building income that works for you. Today we're tackling a concept that gets thrown around constantly in personal finance, but rarely gets explained properly: the difference between good debt and bad debt. Understanding this distinction could completely change how you think about borrowing money and how you make financial decisions going forward. We're going to break it all down today. What makes debt good or bad, real-world examples of each, and how to use this framework to make smarter money decisions. Quick note before we get into it: everything we cover here at Capitalists versus Consumers is for educational purposes only and not financial advice. Everyone's financial situation is different, so always do your own research or speak with a qualified financial professional before making major financial decisions. Let's get into it. First, let's establish the core framework. Not all debt is created equal. The simplest way to think about the difference between good debt and bad debt is this: good debt is borrowed money that has the potential to increase your net worth or generate income over time. It works for you. Bad debt is borrowed money used to purchase things that decrease in value or provide no financial return. It works against you. That's the foundation. But like most things in personal finance, the reality is more nuanced than a simple good and bad label. Let's get into the specifics. What is good debt? Good debt typically shares a few characteristics. The interest rate is relatively low. The thing you're borrowing money for has the potential to appreciate in value or generate income. And the borrowing decision is strategic rather than impulsive. The most common examples of good debt are mortgage debt, student loan debt under certain conditions, and business debt. Let's take each one. Mortgage debt is the most widely cited example of good debt, and for good reason in most cases. When you take out a mortgage to buy a home, you're borrowing money to purchase an asset that historically appreciates in value over time. Real estate in most markets has increased in value over long periods. You're also building equity, meaning the portion of the home you actually own increases as you pay down the loan and as the property appreciates. Additionally, the interest on a mortgage is often tax-deductible, which reduces the effective cost of borrowing. That said, mortgage debt is not automatically good debt in every situation. Buying more house than you can afford, buying in a declining market, or taking on an adjustable rate mortgage you don't fully understand can turn real estate debt into a financial burden. Context matters. Student loan debt is more complicated and represents one of the most debated categories in personal finance. The traditional argument for student loan debt is that education increases your earning potential. A degree that leads to a significantly higher salary over your career can justify the cost of borrowing to get that education. But student loan debt is only good debt when the math works. If you borrow $100,000 for a degree that leads to a $35,000 a year job, the math does not work. The debt burden relative to the income it generates makes repayment extremely difficult, and the financial case for that particular investment is weak. The framework to apply is simple. What will this degree realistically allow me to earn, and does that income justify what I'm borrowing to get it? When the answer is yes, student debt can be a reasonable investment. When the answer is no, it becomes a significant financial burden that can take decades to resolve. Business debt used strategically is another form of debt that can work in your favor. Borrowing money to start or grow a business that generates more revenue than the cost of borrowing is a classic example of debt being used as a tool. Many successful businesses were built partly on borrowed capital. The key is that the investment generates a return that exceeds the cost of the loan. Small business loans, equipment financing, and lines of credit used to fund growth, when the business case is solid, fall into the category of debt that builds rather than destroys financial position. Now let's talk about bad debt. Bad debt is typically characterized by high interest rates, used to purchase things that depreciate in value or provide no financial return, and often driven by impulse rather than strategy. The most common examples are credit card debt, auto loans in certain situations, and payday loans. Credit card debt is the most damaging form of bad debt for most Americans. The average credit card interest rate is between 20 and 28% annually. When you carry a balance at that rate, you are paying an enormous premium for the ability to spend money you don't currently have on things that are often already consumed or depreciated by the time you finish paying for them. Buying a $1,200 television on a credit card and carrying that balance at 24% interest doesn't just cost $1,200. By the time you pay it off through minimum payments, it can cost significantly more, and the TV has lost most of its value in the meantime. You're paying premium prices for a depreciating asset using some of the most expensive money available. Auto loans exist in an interesting middle ground between good and bad debt. A car is a depreciating asset. The moment you drive it off the lot, it loses value. Borrowing money to purchase something that immediately starts declining in value is by definition not ideal from a financial standpoint. However, most people need a car to get to work and generate income. In that sense, an auto loan is often a practical necessity rather than a pure financial decision. The distinction between a reasonable auto loan and bad debt in the auto category usually comes down to the amount borrowed relative to your income, the interest rate, and the purpose of the vehicle. A modest used car purchased at a low interest rate to enable employment is very different from financing a luxury vehicle at a high rate primarily for status. A general guideline from financial planners is that your total monthly car payment should not exceed 10 to 15% of your monthly take-home pay. Going significantly above that threshold starts to strain your overall financial picture. Payday loans are among the worst financial products available to consumers. Payday loans are short-term high-interest loans typically used to bridge a gap until the next paycheck. The interest rates on payday loans are staggering, often equivalent to 300 to 400% annually when calculated on an annualized basis. Some are even higher. These loans are designed for people in financial distress, and they almost always make that distress worse. A person who borrows $300 through a payday loan and can't repay it in full on the due date rolls it over, accumulating fees that can quickly turn a $300 loan into a debt of $500, $700, or more. Payday loans should be avoided at all costs. If you find yourself considering one, it's a signal that you need a different strategy, whether that's an emergency fund, a credit union personal loan, a conversation with a nonprofit credit counselor, or another solution. Payday loans are a debt trap with very few exit ramps. Now, let's complicate the good debt, bad debt framework a little, because the reality is more nuanced than the labels suggest. Context determines whether debt is truly good or bad more than the category of debt does. A mortgage on a home you can comfortably afford is good debt. A mortgage that stretches you so thin you can't save or invest is a different story. A student loan for a high-demand degree at a reasonable cost is justifiable debt. A student loan for an expensive degree with poor employment prospects is a different calculation entirely. Even credit card debt, typically bad, can be neutral or even beneficial if you pay the full balance every month, earn rewards, and never pay a dollar of interest. In that scenario, the credit card is a tool being used strategically, not a debt trap. The question to ask with any debt is not just, is this good or bad debt, but does this specific borrowing decision improve or harm my overall financial position given my income, my goals, and my current situation? Here's a practical framework for evaluating any debt decision. Ask these 4 questions before borrowing money for anything. Question 1. Does this purchase appreciate in value or generate income? If yes, it may be justified debt. If no, proceed with extra caution. Question 2. What is the interest rate? And what is the true total cost of this purchase over the life of the loan? Calculate what you'll actually pay, not just the monthly payment. Question 3. Can I comfortably afford the payments without sacrificing emergency savings or other financial priorities? If making the payment requires you to stop investing or drain your savings, the answer is probably no. Question 4. Am I making this decision strategically or impulsively? Impulsive debt decisions almost always look worse in hindsight. Applying these 4 questions to every borrowing decision won't make debt disappear from your life, but it will ensure that when you do borrow money, you're doing it with clear eyes and a genuine understanding of what it costs. To recap, good debt has the potential to increase your net worth or generate income. Examples include mortgages, strategic student loans, and business debt when the numbers work. Bad debt is high-interest borrowing for things that depreciate or provide no financial return. Examples include credit card balances, excessive auto loans, and payday loans. But more important than the label is the question: Does this specific debt decision improve or harm your financial position given your full picture? That question cuts through the labels and gets to the truth of any borrowing decision. That's a wrap on today's breakdown here at Capitalists versus Consumers. If this gave you a clearer framework for thinking about debt, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We drop new reports every week on debt freedom, passive income, and the financial strategies that build real long-term wealth. We'll see you in the next one. Resources mentioned in this video: Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. This video contains affiliate links. I may earn a small commission at no extra cost to you.